Abel, it's lovely to speak to you again. Always a pleasure. Your new film, Zeros and Ones. We've taken quite a few fan questions about this, and the first question people have wanted to know is Zeros and Ones, the title. What's the thinking behind that?
Zeros and ones. I mean, it's what you're really looking at. I mean, we're shooting digital, and that's what you see. I mean, that's all you do see is computation of a series of zeros and ones. You're not watching the shadow of silver nitrate or anything like that. So that was started there, and then the idea of zero and one. I mean, then your mind can play, anywhere. One meaning ONES, one meaning WON.
Okay, so the other what people want to know or are intrigued by is the intro and outro of the film with Ethan introducing it and tailpiece of the film.
Right.
It seems to have confused a few people in that they're not quite sure, especially in the outro where Ethan says, this is part of the movie, by the way, and it kind of pulls the rug from the expectation of the audience. What's the thinking behind that intro and outro piece?
Well, I mean, it's like he says, it's part of the movie. It's part of watching movies in 2020 something. Especially, so many times you're doing these video intros, and everything is remote. And you're talking and you're introducing a movie, and he did that introduction, like he says in the film. He did that just to try to raise the money.
So
contribution. So then when I saw it, I'm saying, wow, that might be a good way to start the movie. We actually did this in Welcome to New York, where Depardieu we were doing an interview for Cannes, and we just used that. Somebody asked, why are you going to play the role? He gave such an interesting answer. I said, shit, that's better than the first scene of the movie.
Well,
it's like, and then at the end, I said, shit, we got it in the beginning, let's try it. And Ethan, he tried it, and it's like, hey, we'll use anything. I mean, we're using still photographs. We're using pieces off the fucking internet. We're using anything. You dig what I mean?
Yeah.
In other words, when you're working at this level, you ain't quite, what do they say? They use the whole pig, whatever,
Well, in light of, I say, in light of that intro kind of potentially being ad lib, potentially being scripted, there is a line in it in the end where he says, "Didn't understand a word of it," in terms of the script that you sent him.
Yeah, right.
So, in light of that, I know that. How did the script come to him in terms of him accepting it if he didn't understand it? If that was.
He didn't. What he meant was he wasn't. Well, he said it exactly how he meant it. He didn't quite, the script was 18, 19 pages. It was like, it was just like, the scenes were there. The essential flow of it was there. I got it. I wasn't going to, I didn't need to write a novel here. I'm not trying to raise the money. I got it together, We were going to do 444 together. Originally, he was going to be the player there. So we had gone through, he's already seen short scripts from me, So we had gone through the process. And, we didn't, Willem ended up doing that film. And here, for whatever reason, Willem couldn't, and Ethan connected to it, But I like the point he made. He just liked the fact that he liked where we were coming from. He knew he knew my guys. My guys meaning women. You know what I'm saying? He knew the situation of where we're coming from. He went through the process in 444. He didn't shoot it, but he saw it. And he knew that was the film he wanted to be in. He knew it before it. So this one. With these guys, you got the time is right, the place is right, you know, with actors who work a lot, you got to be. It's the roll of the dice of who comes up to play it. You know.
So, going back to the very beginning of your films, I mean, Driller Killer, your first feature, very much was kind of like a guerrilla filmmaking technique, and this was shot during COVID. I know you're living in Rome, and their lockdown has been quite strict. I'm
Right.
just wondering, did you have to adopt the same techniques to film that, and
We
how
don't
easy was it getting
really go,
permits?
but you know, we shoot. You know, our style of filmmaking really hasn't changed that much. Sure, you know, the more money we have, the better the equipment, the more, you know, say the more experienced, and you know, we got the more people we maybe want to use this, that, and the other thing. But how we shoot is started off that way, and is really getting back that way because that's how I really like to shoot. You know, immediate, few people. Sean um, Williams, he has his technique. His technique is he wants the camera in his hands, and focus becomes a very creative element with him. Okay, so he doesn't want anybody pulling focus. He didn't want anybody, you know. So and that fit right in with the fact that we couldn't have a big crew, man. This was COVID before any vaccinations. You know, I mean, I'm 70 years old, bro. I'm like first on the list of who's gonna fucking die. So, you know, I mean, yeah, we sucked it up and shot, but it wasn't that I wasn't afraid, you know.
You're
And I'm super conscious that I definitely don't want to kill him. I mean, we haven't done that yet, so I don't want to, you know, that'd be the worst case scenario. You know, somebody.
your output of late is becoming quite prolific, alternating between features and documentaries. But when we last spoke, you mentioned a couple of projects which don't seem to have come to fruition. One was Jekyll and Hyde with Forrest Whitaker and 50 Cent, and
You
also
know, I can't. You know, we couldn't make it happen. You know, for everyone that gets made, you know, I don't want to say one doesn't, but yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to do that story because it's so. I just love that piece of literature. You know, I just loved him as a writer, and I loved the way that was written in almost like a fever dream. And I think it's like a brilliant screenplay, exactly how it's written, even though it was written before the advent of cinema. And and no one ever did it. Nobody ever did it. They always do this like, you know, as like the Wolfman, where Jekyll becomes Hyde, but when they're two totally separate characters, you know, the two. It's a father story, basically.
and what
But
about your Auschwitz movie?
the what?
What about your Auschwitz movie?
I'm
You
more.
said
I'm not giving that one up, especially now, man. I got to make it now. You know, I mean, this situation in Ukraine is like, who? You know, I mean, what's the response? What do you think the response should be?
well, I think there's a lot of responses which, not being the politician, I probably best not to say anything at this point. And then finally, I just wanted to ask you. This was a really popular question from several fans. Um, they want to know favorite films of yours are King of New York and Bad Lieutenant, and they're wanting to know. And I know this is possibly unlikely. Has there ever been a plan for a sequel to either of those?
Well, we were going to do a prequel to King of New York called Last Crew, but that was like Jekyll and Hyde. You know, that didn't work. What are you talking? What was the other film? The Bad
Bad
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Yeah, Bad Lieutenant. They did it. I mean, no, I mean, no, I never. You know, that's not our thing, really.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your time, Abel.
Okay,
It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
all right, good man. Be cool.